Welcome to another mindful drawing tutorial. This tutorial is another big guy. It's going to take, I'm guessing, around 20 hours to draw. After this one, I'm going to do a series of smaller mindful drawings, but yes, this one is a monster. As I always say, it's actually 20 hours of retraining your brain, installing new powerful programs. So if you're up for a big tutorial, I encourage you, get stuck in. This picture also looks far better in real life than it actually does here. It's got a lot of fluorescence in it, as you can see. It actually pops in real life. It's really vibrant and really bright. It looks a bit flat here, so just bear in mind that it does look far better in real life. It's based on the Fruit of Life geometric template. You're going to see this template pop up over and over and over in my tutorials going forward. It is the perfect template for abstract art. It becomes the measuring template for triangles, shapes, circles, all sorts of things, as you'll see going forward. I'm going to walk you through how to draw this template, and then we're going to get stuck into what you do with your brain, and then we're going to run through the 4 principles of mindful drawing. To start with, just measure out the center point of the paper. Now, with your circle thing, I don't really know what to call it. You place it as shown in the image on the center point as best as you can by eye. Go slow with this. You get better over time, and just find the center point. And as per the images, just keep drawing circles, connecting to the edges of the circles that you drew before. They should just touch the edges. They should not overlap. There should be no gaps. But just do the best that you can. That's it. As I mentioned earlier, you do get better at this over time. Can you see with the ruler how I'm drawing straight lines through these circles? They go straight through the middle of some circles, and every second circle they line up on the edge. And when you get your ruler, it draws a straight line. Once you find this with your eye and you see how it actually measures out straight lines, you see it every time, and it becomes the template for endless possibilities. But to begin with, just see what I'm doing and see how you can get straight lines by lining the ruler up against these circles. Okay, so what you do with your brain is, as you are drawing these circles and drawing these lines, drawing these little patterns, put your full attention and your full concentration into drawing the best tiny little circle, the best big circle, the best line, whatever you happen to be drawing at the time. Put your full concentration into drawing the best thing, so the best circle, the best whatever you're drawing, the best thing that you possibly can. Full concentration, full awareness. And every time the mind wanders into chatter, thought, emotion, somewhere else, anywhere else, other than what you're doing, just gently acknowledge it, because the mind hates to be unacknowledged and swept aside. Acknowledge the thought, acknowledge the emotion, and gently bring your awareness right back to attention, to concentration on what you're drawing. Honestly, if you're anything like I started, you're going to need to do this repeatedly, because what the brain does is the brain loves thinking. It just loves going into different random thought processes. It goes into the future, it goes into the past. It likes to wander everywhere like a naughty child. And that's an undisciplined mind, and that's all of our minds here on earth. But what you're doing by starting this process is you're beginning to train your mind to focus on the present moment, on exactly what you're doing right now. So have patience with the mind. It's very useful. It's an awesome tool. But in having patience with it, you are the boss of your mind. So don't get all huffy, don't get all agitated with the mind or with yourself. Just observe the mind do its mind wandery thing and just bring it back to full attention on what you're doing over and over as many times as you need to do it. And what you're doing by doing this is you are beginning to retrain your brain. What this also does is and I run through this more on my website, is by focusing on the present moment of what you're doing, on these patterns, you're stopping the mind from wandering into thought. But what you're doing on a deeper level is you're actually stopping the mind running its thought patterns, which run your programs. So you're essentially putting the brakes on your programs. And you don't need to know what your programs are to do this. Everyone has programs running, and most of them are actually very limiting. And you'll realize this going forward when you realize how much potential we actually have. But by doing this, you're putting the brakes on not just your thoughts, but your programs. And this is where, through repetition, you're going to allow new things to be able to start filtering in. There is so much to say about this technique, but for simplicity of this tutorial, I think it's important to teach you how to do it and to just tell you that by putting the brakes on your programs, it allows seeds of all possibility, your true nature in. It will filter through the more that you practice putting the brakes on your thoughts and your programs. Because this is a ceiling. This creates our beliefs, it creates our habits, and it's a rock solid ceiling. What you're doing by practicing this technique, by putting the brakes on your thoughts and programs, is you are cracking a hole in your limiting programs, in your damaging programs. And what filters through are seeds of your true nature. And I talk a lot about what your true nature is on my website, and you'll get to find this out for yourself. But it is literally heaven compared to the hell that many of us have created in our own thought processes and in our own limiting programs. Seeds of our true nature are literally seeds of heaven. Crack the hole in the ceiling, let them in. All right, so with that out of the way, I'm going to run through the 4 principles of mindful drawing, which are really easy to remember. And as I mentioned on my website, if you practice mindful drawing for years, like I did, you'll arrive at these 4 principles in your own time when you're ready. But what I like to do is I like to teach you these 4 powerful principles from the very beginning, from the get-go, and cut all of that middle time out so you can just crack straight into the good stuff. Now, the first principle of mindful drawing is do your best and let go of the rest. It becomes really important for mindful drawing to stop self-critical thoughts of, oh, that looks ridiculous. I just drew that really shit. I'm no good at this. I can't do this. This sucks. I'm shit. All of those things, which I guess that was the more serious end of self-critical thoughts. What I often get a lot of is that circle looks really blobby, that line looks, it's not straight enough, it's not good enough. But what we do here in mindful drawing is we wire ourselves with do your best at every second, every moment, through concentration and through focus and through full attention on what you're drawing. Do your best. And then when that's done, that tiny little circle, that little line, let go of it. Let go of the rest. And it's very liberating. It's very freeing. It teaches you to move on to the next thing, but realign with your best. Pull it all back into line through focus and through concentration and align with your best again. You know, later, if you make a really horrendous mistake, like I've done many times, you have full creative power to turn that into something else that wasn't planned. But that's separate. That's using creativity and intuition to get all like super creative and make something awesome out of a so-called mistake. But this principle is do your best, let go of the rest. And what actually happens here is you, through repetition, wire this into your brain, and it becomes very useful here in the mindful drawing session. This mantra will pop into your head over and over and over again. But then what it does is when it's wired into your subconscious mind as a new program, you begin to notice it pop into your being when you're out there in the real world. When you're responding to someone in a way, when you're interacting with someone, when you're trying to achieve something and you get a little bit self-critical again, or I should have done that better, I could have done that better, I should have done that differently. If it's done, that mantra will pop into your head again because you're now rewired with a new program, and it will pop into your head. Do your best, let go of the rest. It's done. And then what you'll do again is through attention and focus and concentration is you will align with your best again in the next second. You'll create your best all over again. Give it another go. It's really liberating, and it's a really beautiful principle which has enormous power at the mindful drawing session. And it also has even more power out there in the real world. Do your best and let go of the rest. Again and again and again. Now, the second principle of mindful drawing is, it's another rhyming one. It's pretty easy to remember. It's go slow and get into the flow. Now, in your mindful drawing sessions, you'll notice a lot, because it's quite a slow practice, it's quite a calming practice. You'll notice your mind want to go faster. You'll notice you want to hurry to get that line of circles done or the outline done, whatever you're working on. Repeatedly, you'll find yourself going faster because the brain wants to go faster. It's the program, go faster. And this program has been created from things like constant busy out there in the real world, doing something all the time, constantly plugged into social media, into the news. The internet has had a huge impact in creating our brain to go faster. It needs something to do all the time. It wants to move. It doesn't like just sitting there being still or doing things slowly. It's just a program. It's just the pace of the program. It wants to go fast. So here with this principle at the mindful drawing table, we go slow and we get into the flow. So what you do through will is when you notice yourself going faster, which usually means getting a little bit sloppier, more so-called mistakes might start appearing. You'll notice it, you'll observe it, and this mantra will pop into your mind, go slow and get into the flow. And through will, you will pull your pace back. And this again is becoming the boss of your mind. You are training your mind to pull back and slow down. And what happens here is When you control the pace, how fast your mind goes or how fast it doesn't, how slow it goes, is you're going to entrain with the new pace that you set. So by you controlling the speed that your mind functions at, you're going to focus on your mindful drawing and you're going to pull back the speed and you're going to go slow and you're going to get into the flow. It usually takes about 10 minutes for the mind to entrain with a new slower pace that you've set. Whether that means going to the local park and being in nature or practicing at the mindful drawing table, you'll notice it takes about 10 minutes of resistance from the mind. It's still wired into going fast and into doing. And it takes about 10 minutes for the brain to entrain, to sync with the new pace that you are telling it to sync with, that you are setting for the mind to entrain with. And then after this 10 minutes, you'll notice that you actually get into the flow. You'll get into the new flow of this new pace that you've set. But for that first 10 minutes, it can be a bit of a battle between you and the mind setting this new pace that you were telling the mind, go slow to get into the flow. And what you'll find later on is, or soon or later on, is by slowing the mind down and finding a sweet flow space, that new things are able to get in through this quieter mind. With combination of the brakes on the thoughts and you slowing the pace of the mind down, you are creating the exact circumstances for new things to filter through. So set the pace during your mindful drawing sessions. Go slow and get into the flow. And observe the mind. Watch it. Watch it as the observer. Don't be stuck in mind. Observe it. Watch it try and speed up. It'll do this repeatedly. Watch it try and wander. It'll do this repeatedly. You are not your mind. You are the boss of your mind. Watch it try and go fast. Watch what happens when you try and pull it back. It will resist. It will try and wind up and go fast again. Like I said, for about that 10 minutes until your brain begins to entrain. It begins to sync with the new program. And through repetition, it becomes easier and easier because you are the boss of your mind. Now, this principle is a fun one. I mean, they all have their benefits, they all have their power, but there is enormous power in this one. This one actually, hands down, has to be my favorite, and it is installing the program of, you are a powerful creator. You can create anything that you choose, and it's true. So what we do here is, during the mindful drawing sessions, you've put your brakes on your thoughts through focus and attention on what you're doing. You're slowing the brain down through setting the pace to entrain with. Now, with this third principle, what you're doing is, in this quiet space, I'm going to teach you to observe the act of creating on paper. Now, this lesson, trust me when I say this, it sounds maybe a little bit absurd in the beginning. It's like, what the fuck? I'm sorry, what's she talking about? But the more and more that you practice this, the more that you'll begin to see, holy smokes, it's real and it's actually limitless. You begin to see that you're a powerful creator. You begin to see yourself through observation in the act of creating. I'm going to remind you over and over until it becomes wide in your brain and you observe it in wonder. You will see yourself draw, create from nothing a line, a triangle, a pattern, a circle. And what you're going to do is you're going to realize that no one's, aside from in my tutorials, I guide you because I'm training you where to or how to draw. Soon, especially with the next principle. And because this is abstract, and when you get the hang of mindful drawing, I'm going to teach you to play with the creator being in you, which is you can put a circle in any color, in any place on that paper, on that blank piece of paper. You can rule a triangle out of it. You can outline it with pink, green, or yellow. You can create shading. You can create a really thick black line outlined with big triangles. I just gave a bit of a ridiculous combination of abstract patterns there. But the point is, there are limitless ways you can create shapes, patterns, outlines, abstract, and it comes from nothing except your desire to create it. From nothing. That blank piece of paper will slowly, layer by layer, come alive with layers of creation, what you are bringing into existence from nothing. And when you begin to observe this, it's wonderful, it's amazing, it's art, it's abstract creation. But when you begin to realize, with the brakes on the conflicting programs that teach you limits, when you have these brakes on and you begin to tap into the powerful creator in you over and over and over through repetition in your mindful drawing sessions, slowly you become programmed that you are a creator being. You can create anything that you choose. So when you go out into the real world, this is second nature now. This is now your new program. You begin to realize, away from your mindful drawing session, that you can create a new type of eating for dinner instead of pizza or junk food or McDonald's or whatever you eat. You can get out a recipe book. You can create something delicious, nutritious, and whole food from scratch. You can create a new exercise routine. You can create a better way of listening to people. You can create a better way of interacting with people, or say, for example, if you get triggered by your partner, you can create a new way of reacting that leads to open communication and leads to a better relationship. You can create a new way of budgeting. You can create a new way of not avoiding your triggers that come up, which are trying to tell you something. You can create a new way of doing anything. And what you gradually begin to see is that these new things that you're creating lead to different places. They lead to different outcomes. And you also realize, because you are consciously creating, you can see yourself creating it. You're making it happen. Now, going back onto the other principles, you don't create things and it just magically happens the first time. Not unless you're lucky or really strong with your willpower. You know, I, with my addiction issues, with my enormous problems that I had, mental health problems, problems in my life, it took me sometimes hundreds of goes to actually be able to implement a new habit or to be able to do something that was better for me. I relapsed and fell off the horse over and over and over again. But because of these principles, especially the first principle, you don't beat yourself up over it. You do your best. And that's it. You let go of the rest. If you fall off the horse or relapse or whatever, you realign with your best, a little bit wiser, a little bit more determined, a little bit more in your power as a creator, and you do your best again. You do it over and over and over until you actually really see that I can create my reality in my life. And it's not wishful thinking. It's not some kind of fantasy, I wish I could do that. When you practice these behaviors through repetition at the mindful drawing session, like you're doing now, like you're planning to, like you're going to do, these programs become wired into your subconscious. You believe it. You know you can. because you can. And you are installing new programs to function from. So it's not, I wish I could do that. It becomes a belief. You know you can. And therefore, as long as you keep trying and aligning with your best over and over and over again and believing in your ability to create, you will get there. And putting the brakes on the subconscious programs that block you from getting there. When you put the brakes on those programs and you create the actions with the belief that you can create that reality, and you keep aligning with your best, and the brakes are on the conflicting subconscious programs that block you, you will create that reality. And you do create different outcomes. You watch where they lead. All of a sudden your life starts becoming different because you're consciously creating the path into new territory through your will and through your attention and through your focus. You're not just going down those paths by chance anymore, because that is unconscious creation. That's what happens when you create from life unconsciously. You're not even aware of the programs that are creating these things. So you override and delete all those programs through the practice that I'm telling you about. And you consciously, with awareness, create new paths. Little side note, this just doesn't create your own life, as my whole website talks about. It creates a better family structure. It creates a better way of interacting in your community. It creates a way of actually connecting with people in your community if you couldn't connect with them before. It creates new habits that ripple out into the wider world. And gradually, when we create from not just the individual, but collectively in groups of us, this is how we create a better world. So if you can't already tell, I'm an enormous fan of creating not just art, but creating ourselves, creating new efficient programs to run from with no limits to what we can achieve. And most of all, I'm an enormous fan of creating different worlds, a different world to live in, a kinder, compassionate world, free of suffering that comes from, as I'm a testament, it comes from deleting all of the destructive programs we run from and replacing them with high frequency programs of limitless conscious creation into a better world free of suffering. Absolutely within our potential. Totally. That's what humans are good at, creating. But we need to harness our creating ability for us to be able to do this. We have to become aware of how we unconsciously create from these programs which are installed in us from the system that is currently in place, and say, no, not doing that. Put the blocks on that low frequency program. And consciously, by choice, through awareness, install a new program. This is how we do it. I get quite excited by all this, if you can't tell. I love it. So I'm just going to go into the last principle here. And this is actually another one which is very dear to me. And it is using your intuition. Don't use mind. And this comes more into play when you're trained up on how to practice mindful drawing and you start playing around with your own patterns and your own abstract designs where there is no wrong because it's abstract. That's the beauty of abstract, not following patterns, creating whatever you want to create. Carve out the road, go down there. The way that we do this, and this is so much fun, is we don't think with our mind so much. Oh, how do I draw this? What am I going to draw? What's going to look good? We use the mind to control the hands and to actually draw and to pick up the colours that we're going to use and to use the ruler. But as far as what we're going to create, I'm going to teach you to use intuition. So here we learn to trust our intuition. And all of us have access to intuition. Most of us don't know it because we don't use it. It's dormant, it's rusty, it's just sitting there in the back of the archives, unused, waiting to be dusted off and waiting to be used. And we are only operating at half our potential if we only use our mind and our brain and our rational side. The other half is our intuitive side that tells us through feeling where to go. And it uncannily knows where to go to get to the best place for us in the best way. The mind doesn't really know how to do that. The mind knows how to carry out the task. So it's essential. But intuition will guide us which path to walk down. And we practice actually using this here in the mindful drawing session when we're drawing abstract. So we have all our colours, we have all of the patterns, we have our template, and we get an intuitive nudge. And I'm going to teach you in this tutorial here, use my guidelines, follow them to the letter if you want to, but I'm highly encouraging you might as well start today. Why don't you use a different colour? Why don't you use a little different filling, a different pattern? Why don't you draw a squiggle in a different way? Why don't you draw an outline with little triangles or bubbles of different blues? Whatever you want to do, I'm encouraging you to start today. You don't have to though. This will come later. But when you feel a little intuitive, creative nudge of, ooh, I might want to do this. What we practice here in mindful drawing is we listen to that voice. We encourage it. We don't let the mind talk us out of our intuitive nudges, our creative nudges. We don't let the mind say, oh, that's going to look silly, or I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't think I'm brave enough to do that. I think I want to stick to the safe path. That's mind. That's also fear. With intuition, we recognize the voice because I'm going to teach you to recognize the voice during our mindful drawing sessions. It would just be a little whisper or a little nudge or a little creative, I might try this, or I want to do this, or I want to use green instead of black, or I want to draw another triangle down this way, or another little mandala in the corner with a triangle and a circle in the middle. We do it. Here, we recognize the voice and we say, ooh, we kind of clap. I can't clap because I'm holding my phone in my hand. And we recognize that's the voice of intuition and of creativity. And we wander down that path. Again, we observe the mind, we see the mind, we don't let the mind talk us out of it. We say, thank you, mind, for trying to keep us safe. Thank you, mind, for trying to keep us on the path we've walked 50 times, but I want to get somewhere new. I want to explore. So I'm going to follow this whisper. And we do. And what happens here through repetition again, good old repetition. Repetition is what wires new behaviors and new programs into your subconscious mind that become automatic. They become second nature. Soon you actually don't even need to consciously try and do these things and train yourself because it will be part of the new you. It's second nature. It becomes the way that you operate from a much higher place of you can create anything and you know it. You believe it wholeheartedly. You've got the brakes on those conflicting programs that tell you otherwise. You know how to align with your best at every second, so you keep trying that thing over and over until you get it, because you know you can get it. And you follow intuition to get where you're going to go. So all of these things become part of the new you that you've created. And it is, I speak from experience, it is the most exciting, limitless thing that you can create. You are your greatest creation. You have full potential to create yourself. And then that's how we create our world. But start with creating yourself and start programming these new behaviors in right here at the mindful drawing table, right here during your mindful drawing sessions, over and over through repetition. Wire yourself into these new ways of being, these new patterns of behavior that become the primary program. This is going to be how new you runs, limitless, full of belief, full of potential, using intuition to carve out new paths, knowing that they're going to lead somewhere very exciting. Observing the mind, realizing with every behavior that you observe, you can create through will, through discipline, through the same blueprint you learn during mindful drawing, you can create a better way. You can create a new way. And because you believe you can do it and you know it's going to lead somewhere and you consciously know and see yourself doing it, you create it continually. Better, more higher, more functional, more powerful versions of you, which ripple out, and you can see the ripple effect everywhere you look. It's beautiful, and you made it. So follow your intuitive whispers. They may not pop up for a while. They may pop up pretty soon. They'll be very small to begin with. But you'll notice them because I'm telling you, I'm teaching you to notice them. The mind will be slowed down so that you'll be able to hear them. The mind will be quiet. And using creativity, this is where they want to pop in first. So you'll notice it and you'll begin to play with your intuition through creating new patterns, new circles, new lines, new stars, new mandalas, new intricate designs, whatever you want. And inspiration will soon, because that's going to be future lessons. Inspiration comes from everywhere. To begin with, just look up even some of my patterns. Look up some patterns on the internet, repetitive patterns in art. And start there. Rule out some shapes and start there. And when intuition pops in and says, ooh, I might want to try this. I might do this. Don't let the mind talk you out of it. We walk down the path. We follow our intuition. We go slow. We get into the flow. We do our best and we let go of the rest. We trust our intuition and we watch as we are creating something from absolutely nothing. We watch ourselves, just like magic, bring it into existence. It literally is the closest thing to magic that there is. It's creativity, whether it's in art on paper or whether it's in your personal life through a small habit, through a complete lifestyle overhaul, or through creating an entirely different world to exist in, not just on the surface, but everyone functions differently from what I talk about a lot on my website. Not low frequency fear, suffering, mental health damage, addiction, suicide, not from all of those places of low vibration existence, but from high frequency, which this process, through putting the brakes on your thoughts and programs, allows your true nature in, raises your frequency, and as I talk about in my benefits section, we humans begin to change. We function from a place of love. We function from a place of unity consciousness to Earth herself, to our animals, to each other. We are that which we see. It is not separate from us. And because we have this deep growing love of ourselves, it is the most beautiful thing that we can perceive. And we realize that we're looking at a reflection of ourselves. We are it that we see. We operate from a place of compassion. We operate from a place of pure integrity and responsibility, because we are totally aware that our actions create consequences and ripple effects. And we create from a place of love, which is, like I said, it's not fake. It's just the way that people become when they begin to shift their frequency into higher states of consciousness. It automatically happens. So then you look around and yes, the world is an entirely different place. Humans are entirely different, free of suffering, free of damaging themselves, one another, and our earth. And that literally is heaven on earth. And we created it. And that enormous concept is seeded in programs that we learn here in our mindful drawing sessions. I've mentioned this before on my website. It's not about mindful drawing. It's not about becoming an artist. It is about creating an entirely new way of existing. And I speak from experience. It is literally night and day. It is literally heaven and hell. They are states of consciousness. So I hope you enjoyed that session and my little explanations of what mindful drawing is. I know they're in depth, but they have to be. I want you to understand, as much as I understand, what mindful drawing is and how much potential it actually has to change your world. And it begins right here. Sitting down, drawing. And it's not about the drawing, it's about what you are training yourself. The way that you are training yourself. The way that you are rewiring your consciousness. The way that you are deleting programs that block us and suppress us and hold us down in low frequency on earth. This process deletes those programs and it raises frequency and it allows your true nature in. And it is the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. And because of love, I do this. I want you to have that too. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you join me for my next session. And I'm going to do some shorter ones going forward because this is a big guy and I love my long, big tutorials. But I think it's important to have some bite-sized ones as well. So I'm going to start making some shorter ones until I have a whole library. Big ones, small ones, and all sizes in between. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.